Hello, my fellow flaccid, fossilized philanthropists. That was hard to say. I'm proud that I actually said that, alright? It might not have been for the first take. I maybe might have had to retry that 5 times, but we're not going to talk about that, alright? Anyways, so today we're going to talk about one of the worst fucking days of my life. And in this video, I do something funny called everything you should never do when you're taking psychedelics. This trip was so fucking bad. After that day, I was considering quitting psychedelics forever. I was just like, I'm done. And like, that might not seem that monumental of a change for you. That might not seem that bad for you. But for me, that's fucking mind-blowing. I love psychedelics. Like, literally, okay, I'm known as the stoner friend. Like, throughout all of high school, they would be like, Wheaties, that's you. Like, every day in fucking college, when I went to college last semester, I was like, I showed up every day. They were like, you high? And I was like, you know? I am known as the stoner boy. Even amongst my stoner friends, I was the top tier stoner for some god-forsaken reason. I didn't even smoke as much of them, but I just was known as the stoner, even though they probably smoked more weed than me. But I was known as the stoner weedy boy. And after that day that I took the shroomies for the first time and had a big boy trip that wasn't just like a, ooh, I feel pretty good, like an actual big boy trip, I said, I like shrooms more than weed. And I stick by that. Still my favorite drug to this day. To this day. And after this trip, this monumentally fucking bad trip, I was like, I'm no longer gonna do psychedelics after this. And obviously that was me being silly, and I'm gonna continue my psychedelic use because I'm a fiend and a heathen, alright? But for a split second, for the couple of days after, when I was still feeling the repercussions of the trip, I was like, I'm done. I literally cannot do this anymore. It was that monumentally bad. I've been through a lot of bad shit. Probably the second worst day of my life. The first is also an overdose. The 2 worst days of my life are both overdoses. But this is the second one. Alright? It was that bad. And I've had a lot of bad days in my life. I've seen a lot of stuff. This was number 2. That's a big boy number. After like being hospitalized for an overdose for 2 weeks, this takes number 2. Like, and it was kind of close. That's how fucking bad this day was. So, what happened? All right, I'm gonna warn you. If you're watching this, and if you hear all of the actions I do in this video, don't ever fucking repeat them. All right? I decided this day, this wonderful 420 day, that, hey, everything you should never do while on psychedelics, while on acid, I'm gonna just do it. Every wrong decision I could have made that day, I made and said, fuck it, we ball with full confidence. I'm gonna tell you about that day. So, last year, wonderful day, 420, or what should have been a wonderful day, the 420 event. It was 420. The date was 420. My bestie hit me up. Yo, what you doing, homie? I was like, I don't know, just smoking weed, laying in bed. What you doing, homie? And they were like, dude, I'm doing the same. You want to smoke weed together? I was like, fuck yeah, dude. And they were like, I bet, pull up right now, homie. I was like, all right, bet. So I hang up. I'm like, all right. I asked my sister. We pull up to the homie's house. We start smoking, me and him. Just fucking sitting back, watching Family Guy, just smoking that loud, you know. We do what normal homies do. We watch the Muppets together. We watch Family Guy together. We watch Sesame Street together. You know, average homie shit. And then eventually we watch some Tom and Jerry, cause that's peak high shit. And they go, oh my god, I forgot, homie. I was like, yes, homie. And they were like, I have acid. You want to trip together? And I was like, did you really just ask me that question? Did you ask me if I want to trip on psychedelics with you? Obviously I fucking do, you dumbass, you dumb piece of shit, you stupid heathen, you. And they were like, all right, bet. So they hand me this like connected row of tabs, this like What the fuck are they even called? A row? Tabs? Like 10 tabs. I don't know how to describe it. It's just like 10 tabs in a row, connected, munched together. They're all like scuffed together. And here's my thought process. I love my homie. They're cheap as fuck. I love them, but like every time we do drugs together, they always get like the mid shit, you know? They always get like sometimes homie pulls up with the top tier stuff, but usually when it's harder stuff, he always gets the mid ones, you know? Like we pull up and then like they're like, we got Molly, and I'm like, bet, and they get like this tiny boy that's kind of like, and you're like, I'm feeling great, but like, you know, it wasn't that much. So up until this day, I have only taken acid that are 60 UG. You know? A good 6-0 positively busting us, sir. And they were not double dosed. It's important to note, they were not double dosed. Homie hands me this just row of tabs, and I just go, fuck it, we ball. Take 2, don't even ask them how much it is. They don't see me take it. I was like, hee. I'm just gonna say I took 1 because I'm a fucking fiend. Hey, I feel bad for doing that now because I was more of a fiend back then than I am now. Now I would have just been like, yo, I took 2, is that cool with you? But this is gonna bite me in the ass because I was like, alright. So I think I took like around 120 because I'm used to taking 60, you know? And usually I take 60 tabs, you know? And I take 2 60 tabs, 120, you know? A solid 120 for my little body, and I have a great time. I trip balls, start seeing good colors. I'm like, mwah. Good times overall. We're just having a great time right now, you know? So my base is normally 120, 260 tabs, right? I go, it's melting under my tongue. I go, how much is this anyways? And they go, 200. And I go, ooh, ooh, this is gonna be a funky time. And right then I should have picked up on something, but my mind goes, we've taken heavy doses of psychedelics before. I've taken shit ton of shrooms, walked home alone at 3 in the fucking morning by myself, and I still had a good trip. I've taken so much psychedelics in my life, had a good trip. I've taken copious amounts of Molly, my jaw got fucked up, had a good trip. I don't think it's physically possible for me to have a bad trip. I was wrong. I pop these bad boys in my mouth. I'm thinking, as long as we don't get like physically assaulted and beat just literal shit beat it out of me, I think it's physically impossible for me to have a bad trip. So I was confident. I was like, normally I take 120. Today I have taken 400 UG worth of acid. Fuck it, we ball. We're just gonna trip balls and have a great time. And then they go, oh, by the way, it's double dose. Like, you know, don't take more than 1, you'll fucking die. I'm like, yeah. See, everyone says tabs are double dosed. Everyone and their mom says, yo, these tabs are double dosed, watch out. Usually they're not. There's like a 10% chance they're actually double dosed. They were double dosed. I have made a grave mistake, and I did not know what was about to come. It was not good. See, that's my first mistake. Hey, if you're normally taking 120 UG of acid, don't take 400 double dose tabs, you fucking idiot. But like, they were already in my mouth, they were already dissolving, so I was just like, fuck it, we ball, you know? So we're just strapped in. We start watching some, where are we watching? Oh, yeah. Okay, we started watching Family Guy, like 30 minutes in, we're like, yo, before this hits, put on psytrance. For those of you who don't know, if you're tripping, watch some psytrance. Like it's just a compilation of visuals that are supposed to like just trip you the fuck out. It's just bright colors, trippy visuals, just colors morphing into each other, just shit like that with some trippy music in the background. It's literally there just so you could trip balls and be like, holy shit, bro. Every time we trip, we watch psytrance together. We're like, watch psytrance. When it hits, we'll be like, whoa. You know, because usually when you're watching psytrance, you don't realize it hits, and until like 20 minutes until after it hits, then you're like, whoa, I've been tripping balls for like 20 minutes. And I'm just so absorbed in this TV show, I didn't fucking realize it till now. And then like it starts coming off the screen, and you're like, whoa, you know. So we have that great idea. We're like, boom, let's do it. So then he's like, homie, it's 4:20. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention we had a pen. We were smoking that little boy, and then we also had a joint. We smoked that little boy. So, one joint down, a bunch of hits of the pen, a shit ton of hits of the pen down in my gullet. 400 tabs of 400 UG of fucking acid down in my gullet, and they go, oh, homie, we got some Eddies. And I go, you got some Eddies? And they're like, we got some Eddies. I was like, pass that shit. 3 Eddies down the gullet. I take one more an hour later. So, right now, current total, 1 joint, a shit ton of hits of the pen, 200 fucking milligrams of weed. When you're not tripping balls on acid, that's a lot. On top of 400 UG of acid, not a good time. Maybe for better people that are like not like more experienced in the psychedelic sphere, but I was relatively new. And I was just ready to have a good time. I was like, fuck it, we're gonna forget about life for a second, trip some balls, have a good time. That's not what happened, alright? So, where's this trip starts hitting, and we're like, holy shit, just watching this fucking psytrance video, having a great time. Just like, whoa, we're just melting in the fucking... in the bed. We're just having a great time, just melting into my homie's bed. And then they go, yo, my girl's coming home in a couple hours. And I go, yeah. They're like, you cool with that? And I was like, yeah. I didn't realize what that meant, but at the time he was like, I kind of want to have sex. Can you like get out of here so I could have sex with my girl on 420? And I was tripping too many balls to realize the implications he was putting down. So I just was in this trip, just having a great time. And it starts hitting. And I start like losing my motor functions. I'm like, oh crap. I look at the screen coming out of the colors are coming out of the TV. I'm like, yeah, it's hidden. And then me and my homie, we're just giggling. We're just like saying random stuff like, Swerve. They go, oh, Swerve, you fucking idiot. And we just start dying laughing, you know? And then they're like, I'm thirsty. But like the problem was the water was in the other room. I was like, I don't want to get up. And they were like, I don't want to get up either. We looked to the nightstand right next to the bed. There's vodka there. And they were like, homie, I have a bad idea. And I was like, I have a bad idea too. They were like, do we do it? And I was like, fuck it, we ball. So we started drinking vodka to hydrate because we didn't have water. We didn't want to get water, and we got some cotton mouth from the Eddies. We were dehydrated, so we're like, fuck it, let's just chug some vodka to soothe our hydration. So currently, 1 joint in my system, a shit ton of pen hits, 200 milligrams of edibles, 400 fucking UGs of acid, and now a quarter of a bottle of vodka in my system. It was at this point my brain started boiling. It started boiling. The colors were no longer going out of the TV. The TV was my entire field of vision. I was having an out of body experience. I realized like the pillow was covering my eye, but for some reason I was still seeing the full effects of the TV, and I don't know. It was weird because like I was like, how am I able to see this TV while the pillow's covering like my eye? Because I saw it perfectly clear, but I knew the pillow was right there, and I was just like, this is so fucking trippy. And then that's when I entered the alien base. I went into a fortress inside my mind. TV was gone at this point. The apartment was gone. I started entering a white and gray fortress. I was moving through it. I was running through the maze. I was just like going through, like, I felt like I was like a neuron in my brain going through the brain cords. The brain cords. Science. Going through like all the brain cords in my brain, just like running through the maze in my brain, and I was just like morphing into the insides of my brain. I was like, okay, so realistically speaking, we're either on the inside of my brain or in an alien base and I got abducted, and I'm not sure which. It was at this point where I started going, I'm tripping fucking balls. It was also at this point where I forgot human language. My homie was speaking. I could not understand what they were saying. And I, at this point, was running through this maze in my mind, completely forgot my homie existed. They talked to me, and I was like, oh crap, I gotta talk to them. But in my mind, I was talking in an alien fucking language. And I could not put together a sentence. I remember being like, oh shit. What if I don't remember English after this? What if I just like cannot speak English after this? Because at this point I was trying to figure out how to communicate with my homie in English, but I could not put together a sentence. I was like, okay, so first, what's the first word we have? And I was trying to figure out how to put together a sentence, and I got together like homie, and then I was like but, and I was just like, wait, where do I put those words? So I was like, but homie. No, homie butt. Homie butt. Then I was just like, oh shit, I forgot English, god damn it. And then this word popped up in my mind in the alien language. It was like Skazanov. And it just was like giant in the center of the maze that I was running through, because I was running through the maze but like on a top down position, so I could see the tunnels, and then there was like darkness surrounding the tunnels that I was running through, and then I saw like the ball of light, which was me, but I saw it in the 3D position as one does. So then I, in the center, so like there was the tunnels right here, and then there was the center, and no matter how much I ran, I couldn't get to the center. And in the center, while I was running to it, was the word Skazanov, or whatever the fuck I just said. I don't know. That wasn't the actual word. I don't remember what the actual word was, but there was an alien language word that was at the center of the core of the maze inside my brain. And it was just so large in my brain, and I was like, oh my god, I need to remember this. I did not remember this. I completely forgot about that until like a day later. Then I was just like, oh, that was fucking weird. But anyways, I was like, I need to fucking remember this. This is a very important word to me. This is gonna change my life. And it was some word in an alien language. It was like a long word that had a lot of like consonants, and it was nothing like I've ever seen in my life. I do not recognize it from any language in the English alphabet, in the English language, or from other languages that I dabble in, like French, Japanese, other languages I've seen. I have not, I could not connect this to any language. So naturally I was like, I'm speaking an alien language. That's cool. I completely forgot English. I don't know how to communicate with my homie. I am melting into my brain, and at this point, my brain started boiling. I started hearing boiling water, very, very loud. Like, it was overwhelmingly loud, and I was just like, oh, that's why they call it acid, because it melts your brain from the inside until you lose all brain cells and die. So at this point, I started thinking, oh, my brain cells are melting. That's not fun. And I was like, oh, that makes sense. My brain cells are melting. That's why I I don't know English at this moment. And it was weird because I was thinking all this, like, partially in English language partially in the alien language, which I don't know how I fucking understood that. But there was words that I was saying in my mind and it just made sense, and partially just in feeling. Like, I would be like, bah, 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 bah. And then, like, that would be half the sentence, and the rest was just feeling, and I would understand what I meant. And then I was like, oh, I need a fucking... It's hard to explain. It's really hard to explain. I'm doing my best, but... In my defense, I forgot English and fucking started learning an alien fucking language. You need to give me a second, alright? So, I was speaking this alien language, and then my brain started boiling. So then I was just like, oh, that's why I forgot English, because my brain is boiling, and all of a sudden, all my brain cells are dying, and I'm gonna slowly die today. That's cool. That's cool. So, I start going, oh, this trip's been going on for a while. At this point, it was like 4 hours into the trip, I would say. I was like, this trip's been going on for actually probably more than that, like 5 hours into the trip of just me forgetting alien languages. Okay, I didn't dabble on this for too long, but like the first 3 hours were really, really good, and then I started speaking alien languages and I started like panicking, and then my brain started boiling and I started panicking. So hour like 5 hits. I don't know. Time is fucking weird, alright? Time was fucking weird. So, like, I assume hour 5 hits, and I'm just like, oh, this has gone on for too long. This has been a bad trip. I kind of want it to be over with. I want to be sober. But luckily, I think it's almost over. I think I'm coming down because, like, I started relearning the English language. I'm like, okay, I'm coming down. I can now speak English. I want this trip to be over. Because, oh, something I also didn't say. At the time, I had a big tooth problem. So, going into this, I had a really, really big headache. And because I was on so much acid or a bunch of other substances combined with acid, I kind of forgot that I just normally have this natural headache. Because my tooth hurt, and it would just cause this giant migraine in my brain. And I forgot about that. So when my brain started hurting in combination with the sounds of my brain fucking boiling, what I presume to be my brain boiling, because it was like, okay, it was like water bubbling, but then I could feel the bubbles go up into my brain and they would pop, but the pop sounded like pop rocks. So it was like water boiling, and then they would pop into pop rocks sounds, and it would be like the most horrifying version of fireworks you've ever seen, because I thought it was my brain melting itself. And I was like, oh, the acid obviously turned all the blood into my brain into acid, and that's why they call it acid, and I'm going to die today. That's cool. I forgot that, like, acid is physically safe for the most part. It's just if you mentally get fucked, you're mentally fucked, and I was mentally fucked. So at this point I was just like, so today's the day I die. That's cool. That's cool. So it was not a good time. So around 5 or 6 hours, I'm like into this trip. I'm like, okay, this trip has gone on for way too long. It's getting bad. I kind of want it to be over with. I'm done. Can you please sober up me? I think it's just too much. And I was just like, all right, we're ready to get sober. Let's sober up. At this point in the trip, looking back, that was 1/4 of the way into the trip. That point where I said, this is too much, I want to sober up, was about 1/4 of the way into the trip. And I was already thinking I was dying and having a panic attack. So at this point, my brain's boiling. I have this headache, which I assume was my brain physically melting on fucking acid, because I have a huge headache, which is just my natural headache, because I at this period of my life, I had huge headaches where the headaches, okay, without acid, the headaches were so bad I could not sleep. Like, I literally at that point in my life, when I had these headaches, I would sleep for like 2 hours a day, because I would just stay up in pain with these headaches On acid, the headache was so fucking bad. It was so much worse that I thought my brain was physically melting. So my homie goes, ooh, my girlfriend's coming home in like 30 minutes. And I go, yeah. And they go, I kind of want to have sex with my girlfriend. And I go, yeah, I bet you do. And they're like, so, and I was like, oh, and I finally get that I'm supposed to leave. So then I text my sister, yo, can you pick me up? And she goes, right now? And I go, fuck, she can't pick me up. I later learned that she could have picked me up at any time. I was just tripping so hard. I thought she was just like, no, right now? No. That's how I read the text. So then I just left her on red. And I go, fuck, what do I do? I look at my bank account. I have $7. And I'm like, oh, I don't want to go into debt right now. So Uber's not an option. And I go, guess we're walking home. I should have just went into debt. I should have just, because I had $7 and I was just like, hey man, I just don't want to go into debt. Looking back, I should have went into debt. That was, walking home at night on acid, already not a good idea. When you are already having a bad trip, convincing yourself you're about to die, don't leave a safe environment to walk home alone at night, alright? So my homie's like, alright, see ya, homie, I'm gonna have sex. And I was like, you enjoy your sex, buddy. At this point, I was feeling good. I was like, alright, I feel like I could, I'm feeling good. I remember the English language. This is great. So, I pull up Google Maps. I spend like, I sit in the middle of the fucking sidewalk for 5 minutes trying to figure out how to get home. Because I was just on Google Maps staring at it going like, what's my address? So for 5 minutes, I was just staring at my phone trying to figure out what my address was. I finally got it. I was like, all right, 2.5 hour walk. That's cool. So then we just start our journey home. And at this point, the headache was getting really bad. The boiling got louder and louder, and it was not good. It was not good. I was in space, all right? So the headache was at its all-time peak, and it was at the middle of my head, like where the headache was just like hurt the most. And that's important. I'll tell you why. Because I thought I got shot in the head at this point in my life. And I already died. But we'll get to that, kind of. We'll get to that right now. All right, so the way home, the streets all look very similar to each other. Like, on my walk home, the streets all looked very similar to each other. And because I was on acid, time was weird. And there were times where I thought the cars were driving in reverse. Like, they were going this way, but I saw them go like this. And cars would slow down sometimes while they walked past me. Everyone was looking at me. And I kept walking down what I thought was the same street over and over again. And very early into the trip, I was tripping fucking balls. I was like this. I was going like this. I was like having a panic attack as I was walking down this street. Also, if you couldn't tell right now, this is why you should never do any of the fucking acts that I do in this video. All right, this is a step-by-step analysis of how to have a bad trip. So avoid doing everything I do in this video if you don't want to fucking lose your mind and go mentally insane. All right, so I'm tripping balls, go like this. Everything was so fucking overwhelming. I looked like a fucking crackhead, and I just kept walking into the street without looking at any directions, and cars kept like just having to slam on the brakes, and I'm so fucking sorry. If you almost hit me and were like, what the fuck is this druggie doing? I'm so sorry. I was having a bad time. I was having a horrible time. I thought I was dead. Actually, at this point, I didn't think I was dead, but I'll explain. So, one of the first streets I crossed, I'm like that, tripping balls, car slams on the brakes, honks his horn at me. I make eye contact, remember his car, and I just ingrain that car into my memory. I look at this guy, he's yelling at me, he's cursing at me, and I just like run to the sidewalk. I see him pass by, And at this point, I feel like, as he passes by, I feel the migraine get really, really bad in my headphone, like, in between my ears. And I feel like my headphones acting weird. And I was just like, oh, that's weird. Didn't think anything of it. I remember the street very vividly. And this was the street I thought I walked by like 100 times. I thought I walked down the street like 100 times because they all look very similar. But this street, I thought I kept walking down this street. So I was like, that was unfortunate. I go to the next street, and at this point, I thought when I crossed to the next street, I was on the previous street I was just on, but again. And I hallucinate seeing that car drive past me again. And I hallucinate him yelling at me again. And then I hear the fucking loud noise. I don't know what the loud noise was, but I thought it was a gunshot. And I feel my migraine get really, really bad in my head. And then I see all the cars. They were going like this. I see them all go like this. Backwards. And I go, oh, I get it now. I died. Oh, and this is just me reliving my death over and over again. Obviously, I died, and now my soul is walking out of its body while my body continues to lay on the floor dead. That migraine in my head, obviously the bullet lodged in the middle of my head at the moment where I died. The pain is obviously the bullet going through my head. And because I kept seeing this car drive past me, hear him yelling at me, this was fucked. This was as bad as it sounds, if not worse, because I was tweaking at this point. I was going fucking mentally insane. I was like literally crying, having one of the worst trips, because I kept seeing the cars like look at me, probably because I was like this, and I was like, oh, that's them going up to inspect my dead body. You know when there's like a fucking car accident and all the cars are like, what the fuck is that? And they like look over and they're like, what the fuck is that? And then they like slow down to like look at it, and they're like slowing down. They're like, oh my god. They were doing that to me, but I think them slowing down was the acid making me believe they were slowing down, because they would just slow down at times because acid. So I thought, oh, they're looking at my dead body. I got shot and now I'm dead on the floor. And then I saw them go back in time. And because time was so fucking weird, they would go like in slow motion forward, or they would go backwards. Like they would be driving forward, obviously, but their car would be going backwards, like time was reversing. I was like, oh, this is time being weird, because obviously I'm dead at this point. And at this point, I forget I'm on acid. Somehow, and colors you know how colors be popping when you're on acid? I saw the colors popping, and at this point the sun was setting. The colors were popping, the buildings were like the windows of the buildings were morphing and like going like this and stuff like that, just being fucking weird. And I was like, oh, this is the afterlife. And I saw the sun setting, and I was like, I get it now. When the sun is fully at, like, you know how the sun sets, and then it gets to that moment where it's, like, really big, and it, like, takes over the sky? I was like, when it gets to that point, I'm gonna have to walk into the light, and that's when I will finally accept my death and go to heaven, as I so rightfully deserve. And there was a bunch of, like, red rose bushes while I was walking on this journey, and every time I saw the red rose bush, like, it triggered something into my mind. So every time I saw a red rose bush, because that happened while I saw a red rose bush while that guy was passing me. So every time I would see a red rose bush, the guy would pass me in my mind. I would hallucinate him passing me in my mind. I would feel my headache getting bad. I thought that was me getting shot over and over again. The cars were slowing down, going in reverse, looking at me, probably because I was tweaking, going like this, you know. I was just having a bad time. I saw all these cars looking at me. They're like, I'm sorry you have to experience a dead body today, homie. I didn't want to like have you witness a dead body getting shot in the head, but I'm sorry, it's what happens, you know. And I'm like, I started apologizing to the cars that I had to, I made them witness someone getting shot. I was like, that's probably traumatic for you, I'm sorry. And I'm like, all right. And every time I saw a red rose bush, I imagined myself getting shot in the head again. My headache would get worse. And I would be like, how many times do I have to relive this death? So I relived my death in my head. Obviously, in real life, I'm not fucking dead. But in my head, I relived my death like 50 fucking times. I walked by that street, I saw the car, and I saw the red rose bush, I saw like reality shifting, I saw the car slowing down, speeding up, all that fun stuff, like 50 fucking times. And I was just like, just crying at this point, you know? And then and then like, I see this girl in the distance, I wipe my face, I'm just like, we're gonna be strong. And then she passes me and she goes, yo, what's up? And I go, hi. And she goes, you celebrating 420? I go, yes. She goes, you want to buy something? You want a car, a pre-roll, a joint? I go, nah, I'm good, homie. And she goes, and I just stare at her, and she's like, well, you enjoy your 420. I'm like, you too, man. And then she just walks away, and I'm like, was that an angel guiding me to heaven? It was not. So then I just continue my walk home, and I keep reliving my death over and over again. The boiling in my head gets worse and worse, and I eventually finally get home. I head straight towards my bed, and I stay up until like 6 o'clock in the morning, having the worst headache of my life, convincing myself if I fall asleep I'll wake up dead in heaven. And then I like panicked because, you know, my lights were off because I was trying to like fall asleep, but I was like, I need to fall asleep because I need sleepsies because it's like 2 in the morning at this point. But if I do fall asleep, you know, I will die and go to heaven. So it was hard to fall asleep, but I was trying to. And it was just pitch dark because that's what happens when it's 2 in the morning and you're trying to fall asleep. And I kept seeing shadow people, and I'm like, this is making it harder to fall asleep. There's a shadow person staring at me. Obviously my Grim Reaper trying to take me to heaven, but I'm too stubborn and won't fall asleep. I was just like, at this point I just accepted death, and I was like, I'm trying to fall asleep, Grim Reaper. And he just kept staring at me. And I was just like, okay. So I tried to fall asleep, but I couldn't because his presence was making me trip fucking balls. And eventually I did fall asleep at like 6 in the morning. By the way, I had the most painstaking headache the entire time because I think the acid made the normal headache that makes it hard for me to fall asleep like 10 times fucking worse. And I thought it was my brain boiling because the entire time I had this headache, I heard water boiling sounds, like the sounds of water boiling combined with like pop rocks just popping in my head. Like, so it was constant like water boiling in my head and then pop rocks just going off and off. And I was just like, this isn't fun. This is not a funky, fresh, funky, fun time, you know? So I was struggling to fall asleep, and I eventually did. I woke up the most fucking depressed I've ever been in my life. That acid trip drained me of all of my serotonin. I was so depressed and so like just unbelievably sad. I sat in my bed for the next 3 days doing nothing except feeling bad for myself and just being absolutely fucking depressed. You know, if you take too much psychedelics, it fucks with your serotonin response. I learned that on Molly. You know, when you take too much Molly, you wake up the next day just feeling depressed. It was like that, but times 10. I was like the most depressed I've ever been in my life, and it was not a good time. For the next 3 days, I did nothing except for just like literally sit there. No energy. Absolutely no fucking serotonin going through my brain. Just crying in my bed. Just laying there. Just for the next 3 days. And it was horrible. Like, that 3-day time period was horrible. Second worst 3-day time period of my life. We're not going to talk about the first, though. But that is my in-depth analysis of why, when you do psychedelics, you should, for the love of God, please stay safe. Do it in a controlled environment. Don't mix alcohol with it. If you do mix substances with it, make sure it's just weed and take a safe amount, okay? Because if you take like a reasonable amount of psychedelics and then you mix some weed in there, you have a fucking great time. You take like a normal amount, you smoke a little loud. Oh my god, that shit busted. But if you take a lot of psychedelics and you mix it with weed, that means you are in for a bad trip. So if you're taking a lot, make sure you're in a safe environment and do not mix substances. I mixed all of the substances, took way too much, and walked home alone in the middle of the night. That is just the combination of everything you should never fucking do on acid, especially with the amount of acid I took. So, if you are like, hey, I want to try acid or Molly or fucking, what's the other one? Psilocybin, aka mushrooms. For the love of God, be safe. Don't have a bad trip. Make sure you're with people you trust. Make sure you have a trip sitter. Don't fucking walk home at the middle of the night, and just have fun with it, okay? Stay safe, please. Don't do anything I did. And thank you guys for watching. If you like this, like, comment, subscribe. If you didn't, why the fuck are you here, bro? It's fucking weird. Anyways, see ya. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.